Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and get more information and find out about previous shows at our website, which is blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Buncombe County District Attorney Todd Williams to being my guest today. And Todd, you can feel free to wave to all you fans and friends who are watching. Okay, so give him a big wave.
Hello, glad to be on your show.
Okay. Likewise, Todd, glad to have you. And I think this is what, the 27th or 28th time you've been on? No, not that many times, but you've been a guest in the past.
This is
Todd
season
has
one.
served as the Buncombe County District Attorney since 2015, focusing on the modernizing of the local justice system through evidence-based reforms and victim-centered prosecution. Under his leadership, the office has prioritized violent crime while implementing innovative diversion programs to address the root causes of non-violent offenses. And so, Todd, the question I always ask initially is if you would remind me, as a kid, you grew up where?
Where did I grow up? I grew up in North Carolina. I'm originally from Winston-Salem, and graduated high school a little farther east in the suburbs of Greensboro, and then graduated college a little farther east in Chapel Hill, and then boomeranged back to Asheville, went past Winston-Salem all the way up the mountain to Asheville, and I've been here since 2001.
As a kid growing up, did you always know you want to be a district attorney?
No. So, as a matter of fact, I mean that's kind of that's a big question. It was never really my ambition to be district attorney. My ambition was to be a public defender, be a capital defender, which is what I was in 2014. But circumstances came to light that required a change of philosophy locally, and so I sought the office in 2014 and won in a really overwhelming fashion in the primary in May of 2014, and I mean it's just been a remarkable experience to serve in this capacity. Now that I've been here for 10 to 12 years, I guess I'm on year 11 now, or just completed year 11, and I'm 3 weeks into the 12th year. I've learned an immense amount about, prosecution, obviously, but more about myself. This public service business is something that I'm not sure really anyone is fully prepared for. I don't think that education, I don't think that, when you come into it, you might have an idea about what your agenda might be, about what the primary issues for the community are, but it unfolds. It's an unfoldment as you move into it that has truly been an experience of a lifetime for me, and it's been, just an incredible honor to serve in this capacity.
How many years were you a public defender?
So, so I've got about 50% on that side of the courtroom and 50% on the district attorney side of the courtroom at this juncture.
Now that
A little bit
background,
more on the public defender side.
is that
On the
background,
defense side.
is that kind of unusual that somebody will be a public defender and then become a district attorney?
Well, it's interesting that you ask, because back in 2014, it was almost unthinkable that somebody would make that move. But I think in part because the voters of Buncombe County demanded a change, and then I proved that it was workable. I mean, I've been reelected twice. That it's happened more frequently nationwide. So it's no longer seen as an Everest to surmount. But it is usually not the path. The path is usually prosecutors moving internally up the ranks, and then there's a retirement and then there's a subsequent appointment or that kind of thing, an orderly process up the hierarchical chain to leadership. So it's a little unusual.
For the benefit of the folks who don't know what a district attorney does,
Yes.
if I can put you on the spot and keep it under 2 hours, could you tell
Yes.
what does a district attorney do?
Well, let me make it just as simple as it could possibly be, which is we prosecute cases in the courtroom. I have been asked, what's your jobs program? I'd like to have my employment record expunged. Listen, we don't have a jobs program in the district attorney's office. We don't have I cannot manage funds. We don't have the administrative office of the courts, pays our people. We don't have a budget that we manage within the district attorney's office. We're in the courtroom and we manage the docket. So we're calling cases for trial. We're calling cases for plea. We're dismissing cases. And those are the three fundamental things that we're doing is by exercising those powers, we're seeking to do justice, right? And so maybe not everybody has the experience of being charged with a serious crime, but many more people do have the experience of being charged with, a speeding ticket, getting a citation. So most people expect that they'll be treated fairly when they come to the courthouse. I've never had a ticket before. So I'll come to the courthouse and I'll talk to somebody down there and I'll explain, well, I didn't see this. There was a newly posted speed limit. I didn't know the speed limit had changed. This is my first, in this area. This is my first ticket ever. Can I get some consideration for that? And our obligation is not to prosecute and punish to the max, right? Now, there are some cases where there are heinous facts and circumstances, and I don't want to bring the conversation down, but there are some cases where, yes, we will prosecute to the max. We will do everything we can to achieve justice and accountability. But for most cases, our goal is to, I like this expression, coming to a place where everybody's reasonably dissatisfied with the outcome. Right? So that people feel like, well, I didn't get a dismissal. And, maybe if I looked at it just the way that I think about the way I was as a driver, I didn't know that sign was there, that it was new. Maybe I really warranted, considering all my past history of good driving, a straight dismissal. But I can kind of understand the district attorney's point because there is a school up on the hill, and I see why they lowered the speed, and I was maybe going a little faster than even I should have been, considering the old speed limit. So I can see why they gave me a $10 fine. So
I don't think
that's what we're doing in the district attorney's office.
I don't think you see that too often anymore. A $10 fine. I don't see that.
Well, actually, Blaine, is it okay if I call you Blaine?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. That's generally the fine that we give on a speeding ticket.
Good point. And explain.
So it's a $10 fine,
right.
And it's a $10 fine and a $180 court cost.
Explain that, and explain that then for the benefit of the folks who aren't aware of that. Your point's well taken. So the court costs, what do those go for?
Excuse me?
Where do those court costs go for? The $180 go for?
Oh, well, that's set out by the legislature, and their facility fees and school fees and a number of other things. But coming back to what the district attorney's office does is our obligation, our moral obligation, our ethical obligation as prosecutors is to do justice case by case, and that's to exercise discretion, to look at the strength of the evidence, to look at what the harm was to the community and the victim, and to seek accountability case by case. And sometimes, the evidence doesn't warrant a prosecution, and we'll dismiss it. Sometimes say, I have never seen you in traffic court, Mr. Blaine Greenfield. So if you were to suddenly show up in traffic court here in the next little while, I don't know. If you were charged with 4 miles per hour over the posted speed limit, we might dismiss your case.
Talk about that just since you're on the topic, Todd. Talk about that if somebody is in court, typically for traffic reasons initially, should they ask to speak to the prosecutor beforehand, or can they, or how's that work?
Yeah, no, that's exactly. So uh, we kind of have an open session where if you get a citation, you have
Right.
a drop-in time. It's usually morning or afternoon. You come in within a window of time, and you will have an opportunity to speak to a prosecutor. And by and large, most cases are handled, um, you know, in the way that I've just sort of described, where we talk to Mr. Blaine Greenfield and said, where you're wearing your seatbelt. Yes, you're a good driver. You have no, do you mind if, you're, in this instance, you're going a little too fast? We'll reduce your charge from 74 and a 55 to 64 and a 55. And, you'll get a license point, but you won't get a license revocation from the Department of Motor Vehicles. So are you interested in doing that? And if you are, then you'll basically pay a fine and accept responsibility for your citation, and you'll leave with a reduced charge. The prosecutor, one of my assistants, generally will speak with you and have a conversation with you that probably lasts just a couple of minutes, and a decision's made. And if none of that is to your liking, if you are like, well, I don't believe that I was going that speed, we'll set you another date, and can contest the charge in court, put the officer on the stand, cross-examine the officer. We'll have a trial, and a judge will make a finding. So that's the way that works. And in traffic court, by and large, I'd say we're talking about 99 points. I don't know, a decimal point after that 99. Some cases are disposed by means of a very brief negotiation like that, in that manner.
So that's one of the big things the your office handles, the traffic situations. Talk about things, I guess, of a more serious nature, Todd, that people are accused of crimes. And
Oh
so,
yeah. So again, we're in courtrooms and we're managing dockets. So dockets are composed of charges, everything from misdemeanor crimes, shoplifting, misdemeanor larceny, and then all the way up to the felony crimes of possession of drugs, um, trafficking, domestic assault, those kinds of things. That's a large portion of our serious caseload. Driving while impaired, on up the punishment chart, all the way up to first-degree murder. That includes, crimes against children, crimes against women, sexual assaults, armed robberies, kidnapping, and you know, we basically dispose of these kinds of cases week by week. Constantly in district court, we're handling, dozens, if not even more cases on a daily basis that can be just traffic violations all the way up to serious misdemeanors. And in Superior Court, district court is basically day to day. Every day is another set of hundreds of cases. Superior Court is a weekly term. It starts on Monday, it goes through Friday, and during the week we generally do a number of pleas, and we generally do 1 or 2 trials, jury trials, per week. That's about what we can our workload is on
one of the
Superior Court
things
level.
that your office, I think, was unfairly criticized for several years ago was the fact that there was a lot of crime happening in Asheville, but I guess there are different natures of crime. And so people were complaining that homeless people were being arrested, but they were being let go. Explain a little bit of that, because I don't think people understand the fact that, you know, you'd spend years in court if you had to prosecute every single case like that. And I guess there are different degrees of severity in terms of the crime they were being charged with.
So the district attorney's office doesn't make any determination about who is in custody or who is released from custody.
Interesting.
And we can, in an indirect fashion, influence who is in custody by issuing a dismissal of charges. But generally, what you're talking about is the post-COVID
Right.
experience where we had an explosion of unemployment and very disruptive circumstance in our community, and an explosion of the unhoused population. Sometimes the term is vagrancy. That led to very low-level misdemeanor crimes such as public urination, defecation, sleeping in public spaces, misdemeanor breaking and entering, that's a little bit more serious, public intoxication, all those kinds of charges that, the experience that we would hear is APD, Asheville Police Department, would arrest, the district attorney's office would dismiss. Here's the thing, though, that a lot of people miss, don't understand, is when the police arrest, they take the individual to a magistrate. The magistrate is an independent judicial officer that is not part of the district attorney's office. They set a court date for that person and make a determination about whether or not that person is to be held in custody. So on very low level charges, what a magistrate generally does is they would, back then, especially because you couldn't have congregant living arrangements, right? Because of the spread of COVID. So they wanted to keep the jail population low. So what that caused was a situation where the police would arrest and the magistrate would review the charges. And if it's not murder, rape, robbery, kidnapping, then they would give them an unsecured bond and a court date that might be weeks, if not months in the future. And so that led to a kind of a hamster wheel effect where, we complained, we saw so-and-so, not to be too graphic, but we heard this over and over again. We saw so-and-so urinate on our doorstep yesterday. APD came down here, they took him away, and he's back here again this morning doing that. And the district attorney's office did get a lot of criticism about that. It's a misdemeanor. It's not first-degree murder. It's not, an inconvenient thing about being a human being is you have to urinate. This is a bodily function.
Right.
You have to sleep, right? And, when we're talking about incarcerating people for basic functions of human existence, as opposed to, the mens rea, I am going to do a malicious act against someone and hurt them.
Good point.
Right. There's a big difference in terms of criminal liability there. So the community and many people in the community, I understand the frustration. But the district attorney's office and the judicial system is not really the entity, the government function that you would look to address vagrancy, homelessness, and issues of that sort, because we just can't incarcerate everyone. And as you said, do we really want to spend court time, gathering up a pool of frothy liquid from the ground and sending it off for laboratory analysis to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it's urine? So just to be absurd about it. But sometimes, we have to make decisions about how much time and resources we're going to take on a case.
Well, and what I always admired about, I guess, you, Todd, and your office was you were also, and we've talked about this, looking for alternative things you could do in those situations, as opposed to arresting them, having a trial, finding them guilty. A better approach seems to me to move them into a system that can help them, so you don't get them a week later, 2 weeks later.
With the county's assistance, we were able to initiate an unhoused diversion program, which would provide assistance for folks, vocational rehab, substance abuse treatment, resources such as a computer terminal and other assistance with a caseworker, that could assist folks who are experiencing housing disruptions to move to a better place. And if they were to avail themselves of those resources, I don't know what criminal behavior modification we're going to get by putting. In most of these cases, the maximum jail term that you're going to get is 20 days. And most of our judges wouldn't sentence someone who's proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for public urination to more than a day. Usually it would be time served, right? So if we go through the criminal system and we get that maximum punishment, let's say of even 20 days, they're in custody for 20 days, they have a toilet for 20 days. And then when they're released after 20 days, what behavior change have we accomplished? So that's the thinking behind, the unhoused diversion program, is to try to bring some resources to bear to create a different incentive structure to modify behavior. So that's the thinking.
And talk, Todd, then, since you're on this topic, let's talk about some of the kinds of positive things that happened in your 10 plus years. You've been in service, 12, whatever it is. But you brought about, I think, some very good things happening in the government. What are some of those?
Well, I mean, we created Buncombe County's first Veterans Treatment Court, the first one in the state of North Carolina that's in Superior Court, where we can, really take a close look at criminal histories and identify folks who are nonviolent, who have experienced circumstances where their substance abuse has created a cycle that's led to criminal activity. And with the VA here in Buncombe County, which is one of the best VAs in the country, to coordinate the resources of that VA within the criminal justice system, we've seen some amazing turnarounds for veterans in the system. In Veterans Treatment Court, you can provide wraparound services of the sort that I would like to see throughout the criminal justice system. Because, if we have somebody who's got, an injury from, service-related injury, and that's led to, it's spiraled from prescription drugs to street drugs for pain management purposes, the VA can give you physical therapy. The VA can also give you substance abuse treatment, psychological services. Well, many vets have, issues pertaining to PTSD and things like that. We don't always have those kinds of resources, in the criminal justice system. I would like to see that throughout the criminal justice system, in that we have the VA down there and we can integrate that within our system. I said, let's make the investment. Let's do it. So I'm personally the DA that manages our caseload in Veterans Treatment Court now. And so that's one of the many good things that I'd say we've accomplished, in addition to these diversion programs, such as the unhoused diversion program that I just mentioned.
Talk also, if you would, about the Child Advocacy Center.
Yeah, the Child Advocacy Center was functioning in Buncombe County up until sometime in the 1990s, and I don't know what led to the rupture between perhaps law enforcement, the district attorney's office, and the then existing Child Advocacy Center. But it was defunct for more than a decade, and the time was ripe to bring it back in 2014. And the if you will, the science, I guess, the practice of running a Child Advocacy Center has been widely acknowledged to be a best practice, because the core of the Child Advocacy Center is you have a multidisciplinary team that generally is composed of law enforcement, prosecution, and more importantly, perhaps, medical professionals, DSS, social workers, perhaps mental health professionals, who are in a multidisciplinary setting. And when the child, who is in some situations suffered grave traumatic injury, is interviewed about that circumstance, they're asked to tell their story one time. And after they tell that story, it goes into the criminal file, it goes into the medical file, it goes into, it goes where it needs to go. And then the child can begin the child's path to, recovery and healing, as opposed to telling the story multiple different times to social worker, to law enforcement, to prosecutor. And in each iteration, sometimes we're working with children who are, they're traumatized. If the questions are asked in different ways by different investigators or different professionals, you get different answers sometimes, which then can go to a credibility issue at trial. Not that the child in every circumstance is lying, but it gives the defense lawyer, the defendant, something to ask questions about at trial that can cast a cloud of doubt into the factual circumstance. So the notion of the Child Advocacy Center is to have this multidisciplinary team. This is the core. You get the information from the child, and then you move the child through the system and put the child on a path to recovery faster, quicker, and more efficiently.
Is there any way you measure the effectiveness of all these programs?
Well, that's a very difficult question. Every case is its. I look at all these cases as their own challenge, individual challenge, and that's really what prosecutors are compelled to do. Each case is its own world, factually, and it's sort of set apart from all other cases. So we have to come into these circumstances with families and children, and not. Yes, we have systems in place that we use as a foundation to build better outcomes, but we have to meet these families and victims as they are, as they sit in front of us, case by case, and we have to be governed by what's right, by the facts and circumstances for each victim and family. And so what I'm trying to say there is, it's really important that the case outcomes not be governed by like a quota or statistical outcome, right? So a lot of our, I guess, measures are really sort of self-reflective and self-analytical, not just from the district attorney's perspective, but as a multidisciplinary team. And a lot of times, the multidisciplinary team that I just talked about, a lot of times we go back as a team and we consider how we could do things better, or can we improve our practices case by case by looking at a certain case and a certain case outcome. But we're really not trying to achieve justice by increasing a percentage rate of say conviction or a length of sentence or some kind of outcome like that. I don't know if all that makes sense, but it's a difficult concept to articulate.
Well, one other question I'll ask you, Todd, and it's kind of my sense of what's happening. But when you came on board, there were all sorts of, it seemed like cases of corruption involving government, police, local officials. I don't know if it's my impression or reaction, but it seems that's been cut down since, maybe when I first moved in the area. Is that a perception, or is there still a lot of government corruption out there that you have to fight and deal with?
Well, if my pledge is to took the oath to do the job. So if there's probable cause to believe that there is corruption, it will be investigated. If there's wrongdoing by officers, it will be investigated. So I do think that we have seen, for a number of reasons, and perhaps one of those inputs is the fact that in the district attorney's office, we have prosecuted multiple different police officers. And it's not something that we take pleasure in, but the prosecutions have occurred, right? The district attorney's office, I think law enforcement has both, perhaps locally and nationally, has come to realize that there is an expectation that law enforcement officers be held accountable. And here we are. I'm not dressed in my suit because it's a snow day, which you told me that this might be broadcast very soon. But
right.
This past weekend, what with the ice storm, both here and in Minnesota, I guess is what I'm trying to draw the connection with. There is a strong, desire or a strong feeling. The public feels very strongly that law enforcement officers be held accountable when they do wrong, right? And I think we're having, again, this discussion nationally after what we've seen happen tragically in Minnesota now on 2 occasions here this month. So I think law enforcement has grown to understand. They're wearing body cameras.
I was going to ask you that.
They're wearing body cameras, and this is something that came online while I've been district attorney, and that has just the fact that they're wearing body cameras in and of itself has, I think, for many officers, changed behavior, and it's given us, in the DA's office, a major tool to go back and look at behavior and determine whether or not somebody should be held accountable, aside from, say, given a paid leave of absence by a police chief or something like that. Whether or not they need to be brought to court is the question.
A couple of final questions, Todd, just on the same topic. If somebody's listening to this or watching this and they want to bring up an issue to the DA's office, how do they go about doing that?
So we do have buncomeda.org, and there's a means to communicate with the office through buncomeda.org. But if you have a dispute with your neighbor, and it involves potential criminal activity, a threat, or there's trespassing or something, it's a law enforcement issue. So the district attorney's office, again, we prosecute cases in court. We have no investigatory abilities. We have 2 investigators in the office. The 2 investigators that are in our office are there for litigation support, which is after law enforcement has received the call about the neighbor who's threatened so-and-so and has done something in regard to initiated charges. And the case is in court, then we might be able to send an investigator out to learn more, to find other facts and circumstances, to bolster the prosecution, to find witnesses that might assist in getting accountability. But in terms of how do I reach out for the DA's office and ask for, an investigation of, I don't know, the local tax collector?
Right. Well, yeah, example. Yeah. So how do you do that?
I believe that somebody's stealing money. Well, right. That's a conversation for law enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you contact the police department first.
Yes. Yeah.
How about you were mentioning? How about a government official? About somebody higher up?
So yeah. So I do get a number of communications through buncomeda.org. Where people are, making inquiry about an investigation for, various individuals. And, if it's something that appears to be somewhat credible, or it's bolstered by some showing that there might be some credibility to it, a lot of times these messages don't on their faces have really any credibility. But sometimes it will warrant a call back to law enforcement, and I will request that law enforcement make contact with the individual and perhaps take a statement or do some independent investigation.
Two final questions, Todd. Number one, I think you mentioned it, but if somebody wants to get in touch with your office, what's the best bet?
Well, buncomeda.org is a good way to do it. There's a phone number, 828-259-3410.
Okay.
And then we're located on the 6th floor of the Buncombe County Courthouse.
Okay. Now I should have to ask you to repeat that number once again. What was that number again?
Well, we really don't need
Okay, go to the
just
website.
everybody calling, but
Go to the website.
we have plenty of calls.
Okay. And lastly, Todd, the question, of course, I have and everybody else might have as well. So, Todd's, your term of office is up in 11 months or whatever it is. Do you have any plans as to what you're going to be doing afterward?
Uh, I have ideas, but I don't particularly have plans. Yeah, I mean, if folks want to go to, I'm talking to myself because I'm setting myself up for, all kinds of really flavorful comments, I'm sure. But you want to go to buncomeda.org and tell me what I should do? Yeah, here we go. Here we go.
Well, you've been told that before. Is that correct?
I have. I already have a number of things that are just built into my daily life that will keep me busy, and those are family matters. But yeah, no, I do anticipate that I'll be doing something in law or hopefully justice, maybe a bigger sphere. I don't know. I don't know precisely what it'll be, but I've got the rest of 2026 to work that out.
Okay. Well, look forward to hearing about it because knowing you, it's going to be exciting stuff. And as always, Todd, thanks for joining me on this edition of the Blaze World webcast, podcast, if you will, and also my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And we'll see you hopefully sometime down the road. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.